The sun was high in the sky, burning bright over the dry land. The road stretched far ahead, made of cracked dirt and old stones. There were no trees, no water, and no people, only wind and silence. A small cart stood still in the middle of this road. One of its wheels was broken, half sunk in the dirt. Beside it, a woman tried to fix it with her bare hands. Her name was Mara. Her clothes were dusty, her face tired, but her eyes still full of strength. Beside her stood a little girl, no older than 10. Her name was Lena. She held a thin cloth bag and wore old boots with holes. Her brown hair was tied in a loose braid. She did not cry. She just stood there quietly, watching the road ahead. They had been walking for 4 days now. Their food was almost gone. The water bottle was nearly empty. Mara had hoped the cart would carry their things all the way to Stonevale, a town they had heard about from passing travelers. But now, with a broken wheel, they were stuck in the middle of nowhere. "Is it going to work?" Lena asked softly. Mara looked up and shook her head. "Not yet, but I'll try again." The girl sat down on a rock nearby, looking up at the sky. 2 suns shone down. It was always hot on this planet. They had lived here for years, ever since Earth fell into silence. Colony life was hard. After the trade routes were cut off, towns began to die one by one. Now only a few places were left with hope. Lena heard a sound. A soft, steady crunch of footsteps on dirt. She stood and turned her head. Far down the road, a figure was walking toward them. He was alone, wearing a long, dark coat and boots that kicked up dust. A bag was slung over his back. He looked tired, but he walked straight, like a man with a purpose. "Someone's coming," Lena said. Mara stood up fast, alert. She reached for a small tool from the cart, just in case. "Stay behind me." As the stranger came closer, he raised one hand slowly, not a threat, but a sign of peace. He stopped a few steps away from them. His face was rough and tanned by the sun. His eyes were quiet and deep, like someone who had seen too much. "Your cart broken?" he asked. Mara nodded, not lowering her tool. "Yes, and we don't have the parts to fix it." He looked at them, then at Lena, who peeked out from behind her mother. "I don't have much," he said calmly, "but I might be able to help." Mara stayed silent. Then Lena stepped forward slowly. Her voice was soft but clear. "We don't need food today, just a hug." The stranger blinked. He looked down at the girl, surprised. Mara was about to pull her back, but stopped. Something in the man's face changed. His shoulders lowered. His eyes softened. He knelt down and opened his arms slowly. Lena walked to him and gave him a gentle hug. It lasted only a few seconds, but in that moment, the hot sun, the broken cart, and the empty road seemed far away. Mara watched in silence. She didn't trust people easily. But something about this man felt different. He stood up again and said, "My name's Rain." "I'm Mara. This is Lena." Rain looked at the wheel. "I can try fixing it. I've worked with old carts before." "Might take a while." Mara nodded. "Thank you." And just like that, without promises or deals, the 3 of them knelt by the broken wheel and began working together. On a road forgotten by most, under a burning sky, a girl's hug had changed everything. Rain worked quietly beside the broken cart. His hands were strong but careful. With a small metal tool from his pack, he scraped old rust off the wheel axle and checked the bent frame. Mara sat nearby, watching him with cautious eyes. She had seen people pretend to help before, only to steal or lie later. But Rain didn't ask for anything. He didn't talk much either. He simply worked. Lena stayed close to her mother, but her eyes kept going back to Rain. There was something calm about him, like he had walked through many storms but never lost his way. "Where are you going?" Lena asked after a while. Rain didn't stop working. "Nowhere, really, just walking." "Why?" "I don't have a home," he said simply, "so I keep moving." Mara frowned. You're not from one of the fallen towns? I was from a place called Brightpost, he replied. It's gone now. Raiders burned it 2 years ago. Mara lowered her eyes. She had heard of Brightpost. It used to be a strong colony, full of life. Now it was just dust. I'm sorry, she said. Rain nodded, but didn't speak more. The wheel was finally fixed after an hour. Rain tested it by slowly rolling the cart forward. It moved better now, still wobbly, but it would last a few more days. That should hold until you reach Stonevale, he said. Mara nodded. Thank you. We couldn't have done it alone. You don't owe me anything, Rain replied. Lena walked up to him again. She looked up at his face with bright eyes. You can come with us, she said. We have a little food we can share. Rain looked at her, surprised. Then he looked at Mara. Mara hesitated. Trusting strangers was dangerous. But then she saw how Rain looked at Lena, not with greed or coldness, but with something else. Something like sorrow. You're welcome to walk with us, Mara said at last, but we don't have much. I understand, he said. And so the three of them began walking together down the long road towards Stonevale. The suns began to fall lower in the sky. The red light stretched their shadows across the dirt. They found a small hill beside the road and made camp there. Rain gathered dry sticks. Mara used a heat capsule to light a small fire. They sat close together, quiet. The night was not safe on this planet. Many things moved in the dark, stray machines, hungry beasts, and worse. But for now, the fire kept them warm. Lena ate a piece of dry bread and offered the rest to Rain. He took only a small bite. Thank you, he said. Lena leaned back against the cart, her eyes sleepy. Do you think my papa is still alive? She asked. Mara looked down. Her face grew tight. Rain asked gently, what happened to him? He went out to get medicine when I was sick, Lena said. There was a fire in our town that night. He didn't come back. Mara added softly, that was 6 months ago. We waited. But then we had to leave. Rain didn't say anything. He looked at the fire. His own memories stirred memories of people he had lost, places he had loved. War, famine, silence. So many names all gone, but Lena still had hope. She held it like a small light in the dark. I think he's still out there, she said. He promised. Rain looked at her and nodded. Then maybe he is. The stars slowly appeared in the sky, bright and cold. The wind grew colder and the land was quiet. Rain offered to take the first watch. Mara agreed and wrapped Lena in a blanket. She fell asleep quickly, her hand still holding her mother's. Rain stood near the fire, looking out at the night. He listened for sounds in the dark, any noise that might mean danger. But all he heard was the soft breathing of the child, the crackle of fire, and the whisper of wind across the dust. And for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel alone. The next morning, the sky was still dark when Rain stood and stretched his arms. The fire had gone out, leaving only ash. He had stayed awake most of the night, watching the road and listening to the wind. Mara woke first. She looked at Rain and gave a small nod. There were no words, but a little more trust had grown between them. Lena woke soon after. Her hair was messy, but her eyes were bright. Did you sleep? She asked Rain. A little, he said with a small smile, after a simple meal, half a dried fruit, 1 small cracker each, and a few sips of water. They packed up and began walking again. The cart was heavy, and the repaired wheel wobbled, but it moved. The road was quiet except for their footsteps. They passed old signs rusted by time. One had the word Stonevale scratched into it, pointing forward. Do you think Stonevale is real? Lena asked. Mara answered softly, I hope so. That's all we have now. Rain didn't speak. He had heard many stories of places that promised safety. Some were lies. Some were long gone. Still, something about Lena's hope made him want to believe. As the sun rose higher, the heat returned. Sweat rolled down their faces. They took short breaks under broken street poles, drinking only when needed. Along the road, they saw signs of old battles. A burned-out rover lay in a ditch. Scorched metal and cracked glass littered the ground. The world was once full of machines, traders, and travelers. Now it was mostly silence. Were you a soldier? Mara asked Rain during one rest. No, Rain replied. Just an explorer. I used to map places. I traveled between colonies before everything fell apart. What happened to your ship? It was taken by scavengers, he said. I lost my crew. Since then I walk. Mara was quiet. She knew loss too well. Her voice grew softer. Thank you for helping us. Rain looked at her. You helped me too. I forgot what kindness looked like. Later that day, as they passed a dry riverbed, the cart suddenly jerked and stopped. One of the back legs had cracked under the weight. Mara sighed and knelt beside it. We need something to hold it up, she said. If this breaks, we'll have to leave supplies behind. Rain looked around. The land was bare. Then his eyes stopped on an old power pole half buried in the dirt. He walked to it and began pulling loose the metal support beams that it took time and effort. He used a flat rock as a tool, breaking rusted parts apart. His hands bled a little, but he didn't stop. Lena watched him quietly. She had seen strong men before, but never someone who used strength with such calm. Finally, he came back with 2 metal rods. Using rope from his own bag, he helped Mara prop up the cart. It held. You did it, Lena smiled. Rain gave a small nod. It'll hold for a while. They kept walking. That evening, they came to a large flat area where the road widened and cracked like broken skin. In the center stood a small rest station, an old solar tower with no roof. Inside, there were broken chairs, a dry fountain, and a long dead screen. We'll stop here, Mara said. They set up camp inside the station. Rain checked the area while Mara boiled a bit of water over a heat stone. Lena drew shapes in the dust with a stick. Do you think the world will get better? She asked. Rain sat beside her. I don't know. But if people keep helping each other, maybe it will. Lena smiled again. You're like my papa. He used to say that too. Mara looked at them from the fire. For the first time in weeks, she felt a little safer. That night, as stars returned to the sky, Rain sat watch again. This time, he did not feel like a stranger. He felt like part of something. Like maybe, just maybe, hope wasn't lost yet. The sky turned deep red as the sun slowly sank behind the hills. Shadows stretched long across the broken land. Rain, Mara, and Lena sat inside the old rest station, sharing their last bit of food, some dried roots and one small water pack. The wind outside had picked up. It whistled through the cracks in the walls, carrying dust and strange sounds from the empty world. We'll leave early tomorrow, Mara said, her voice low. Stonevale should be 2 or 3 days away now, Rain nodded. He looked tired, but calm. He had been quiet most of the day, always watching the horizon. Lena sat between them, leaning her head on her mother's shoulder. Her eyes blinked slowly, fighting sleep. She listened to the wind and the quiet crackle of the small heat stone. Do you miss your old home? She asked Rain. He paused before answering. Yes, but I think what I miss more is the people. Were they kind? She whispered. Some were. Some weren't, Rain replied. But there were friends. We looked out for each other. Lena closed her eyes. Like now? Rain looked at her and gave a small smile. Yes, like now. As night fully covered the sky, the stars came out bright and cold. Rain stood up and walked outside the rest station. He scanned the land with his eyes. Everything was dark, except the tiny orange glow of their campfire behind him. Then he heard something, a faint mechanical sound, a soft buzzing like tiny wings. Mixed with metal, Rain crouched down and pressed his ear to the ground. He heard movement. Slow, rolling wheels. Small, but steady. Not animals. Not wind. Something else. He returned quickly to Mara and Lena. "Stay inside," he said. "Put out the fire, now." Mara knew better than to ask questions. She poured sand over the heat stone, darkening the room. "What is it?" She whispered, "Scavenger." "Drones," Rain replied. "Maybe 2 or 3. Searching the roads." Mara's eyes widened. "Are they dangerous?" "Yes, they scan for movement, heat, and sound. If they think you have anything useful, they take it. And if you don't, they take you anyway." Rain looked around quickly. There was no back exit. Just one broken door and thin walls. They needed to hide, but the room was open. He grabbed a broken metal sheet and placed it near the doorway as a shield. Then he signaled Mara and Lena to lie flat on the ground behind some rubble. The sound grew louder, buzzing, clicking. Soft. Beeps. Red lights flashed outside. Shadows moved across the dirt. The drones were near. Lena held her breath. Her heart pounded fast. Mara wrapped her arm tightly around her daughter, holding her close. Rain stayed by the door, quiet as a stone. One drone floated just outside the doorway. Its red light scanned the area. It hovered for a moment, turning slowly. Then, without warning, it moved closer. Rain reached into his coat and pulled out a small black disc, an old EMP charge. Weak but still working. He clicked the side softly, armed it, and waited. The drone passed through the doorway. Its scanner lit up the dark room for a second. Rain threw the EMP disc directly under it. Zap! A flash of blue light filled the room. The drone sparked, shook, then dropped to the ground with a heavy thud. Smoke rose from its metal shell. The sound made the other drones stop. They paused outside for a second, then flew away, heading toward the hills. Rain waited a few minutes before speaking. "They're gone." Mara let out a long breath. Lena sat up slowly, eyes wide. "You saved us," she whispered. Rain nodded. "They'll be back, maybe with more. We should move at sunrise." Mara stood and looked at the broken drone. "Where did you get that disc?" "Found it in an old outpost," Rain replied. "I only had one." "You used it for us," Lena said. "You would have done the same." He answered quietly. They all sat back down, tired but safe for now. Outside, the stars still shined, watching over them in silence. Inside, 3 strangers, once alone, were now something stronger, a team. And as Lena closed her eyes again, her last thought was clear. The suns rose early the next morning. A golden light spread across the dry land as the wind pushed soft dust into the air. Rain stood outside the rest station, looking toward the hills. His eyes were sharp. He felt something was wrong. Inside, Mara packed the few supplies they had left. Lena helped by folding the blanket and tying their bag. She looked happy the night was over. Rain stepped back inside. "We need to leave now," he said. Mara looked up. "Did you see something?" "No," Rain replied. "But I feel something. The drones last night might have sent a signal." Mara didn't ask more. She trusted his instinct now. They moved fast. The cart creaked but held together. Rain walked ahead, scanning the road. Mara pushed from behind. Lena walked beside her mother, holding the corner of the bag. By midday, the sun was strong again. They had found a long, flat stretch of road with no cover. Rain didn't like it. Then they heard it. A low hum. Like engines in the sky. Rain turned quickly. On the far side of the road, 5 land bikes came into view. They moved fast, kicking up dust clouds as they rode. The riders wore dark clothes and helmets with glass visors. On their arms were faded red symbols, marks of the scavenger gangs. Raiders. Rain said, his voice calm but firm, "Run, now." Mara didn't argue. She grabbed Lena's hand and pulled her toward a dry riverbed nearby. Rain stayed back and turned the cart over on its side, hiding it behind a pile of rocks. He then pulled out an old flare gun from under his coat. Only one shot. It wasn't a weapon, but it could make noise and light. He aimed it high and fired. Boom. Bright red flash burst in the sky, drawing the raiders' attention. They changed direction and sped toward the flare. Rain took a deep breath and ran in the opposite way, toward a line of broken pipes near the riverbed. He dove behind them, out of sight. Mara and Lena crawled under a broken bridge, hearts pounding. The sound of bikes got louder. Lena's eyes were wide with fear. "Will they find us?" she whispered. "Stay quiet," Mara whispered back. She held her daughter close, trying to stop her own shaking hands. Two raiders zoomed past their hiding place, heading toward the cart. Another stopped nearby, scanning the area. Just then, Rain threw a rock far away toward an empty fuel barrel. It hit with a loud clang. The raider turned and rode off to check the sound. Rain crawled down to where Mara and Lena were hiding. "We need to move," he whispered. "Now while they're split." The three of them moved through the dry riverbed, crawling low. Rain led them toward a large boulder. Behind it, he found an old tunnel entrance, probably once used for water flow. It was dark and narrow but safe. "In here," he said. They squeezed inside. It smelled of dust and old metal. The tunnel was cold, but it kept them hidden. Above them, the raiders circled. One of them found the broken cart. He kicked it hard, then shouted something in a strange language. Another fired his gun into the sky, but there was no sign of the people they chased. After a while, the sound of the engines faded. Rain listened carefully before speaking. "They're gone." Lena let out a shaky breath. "That was close." Mara touched her daughter's face. "You were very brave." Rain sat down, wiping sweat from his brow. "They'll come back this way again. We should stay hidden until sunset." That evening, when the sky turned orange and soft, they came out of the tunnel. The cart was broken beyond use, but their small bag was still there, thrown to the side but untouched. They picked up what was left and continued on foot. No one spoke for a while. The road ahead looked long, but they were alive. Lena finally broke the silence. "Why did you help us again?" she asked Rain. Rain looked at the sky for a moment, then at her. "Because someone helped me once when I had nothing," he said. "Now it's my turn." Mara gave him a quiet look. In her eyes there was something new: respect, and maybe a small sense of peace. As they walked under the starlit sky, their steps felt stronger. Danger still followed them, but so did something greater: trust. After 2 more long days of walking, their legs weak and water low, Rain, Mara, and Lena finally saw it: Stonevale. The town sat in a wide valley, surrounded by broken fences and tall metal towers. From a distance, it looked peaceful. Smoke rose gently from chimneys, and solar panels lined the rooftops. It was the first place with real buildings they had seen in weeks. "There it is," Mara whispered. Her voice was a mix of relief and fear. Lena smiled. "We made it." But Rain didn't smile. His eyes stayed fixed on the town. "Let's be careful," he said. "Not every town gives what it promises." As they walked through the outer gate, they passed tired faces: men and women sitting on crates, children playing with sticks, old people sleeping under thin blankets. These were not people inside the town. These were people outside the wall. One old man looked up at them and said, "They won't let you in unless you pay." Rain knelt beside him. "What do they want?" "Food, tools, batteries, even clothes." The man replied, "If you don't have something they like, they turn you away." Mara frowned. But this was supposed to be a safe place. The man gave a dry laugh. It was long ago. Then the traders took over. Now they lock the gates and choose who enters. Still, they walked up to the front gate. A guard in a black uniform stood beside a scanner post. His face was hidden behind a dusty helmet. "What do you want?" he asked. "We seek shelter," Mara said. "Just a place to rest and recover." The guard looked at their worn clothes and small bag. He shook his head. "No entry without offering." "We have nothing to give," Rain said calmly. Then, "You sleep outside," the guard replied. "That's the rule." Lena stepped forward. "But we walked so far." "Please." The guard looked at her, then turned his eyes away. "Move along." They returned to the outer area and sat near a dry tree stump. Other families were camped there too. Some shared stories. Some just sat in silence. Everyone had come to Stonevale hoping for help, but most were turned away. That night, Rain walked quietly through the outer camp. He listened to people. He heard stories of missing sons, burned villages, and lost friends. All of them were looking for a second chance. Mara sat beside Lena, holding her close. "This isn't what I hoped for," she whispered. "I still believe it can be better," Lena said. "Maybe we can change something." The next day, Rain tried speaking to the local council, a group of 5 men and women who controlled the inside of Stonevale. They sat in a cool building, full of clean water and working lights. Their clothes were neat. Their boots were new. "I don't want a home for myself," Rain said to them. "I want a place where these people, those outside, can live with safety and dignity." One of the leaders, a woman named Rona, replied, "We barely have enough for our own people. If we open the gates, we fall." Rain looked around. "But you have working machines, food storage, and solar power. Why not teach the others to build more like this?" Another man answered coldly, "Because not everyone deserves to be saved." Rain stood up. His voice stayed calm. "You forgot something. These people are your people. They are your past, and maybe your future." But the council did not listen. Rain returned to the outer camp that evening. "They said no," Mara guessed. He nodded. "But that doesn't mean we stop. Then what do we do?" "We build something ourselves," Rain said. "We fix what we can. We teach. We help. We start small." Lena's face lit up. "Like a new village?" Rain looked at her. "Yes, right here, just outside their wall." Mara smiled for the first time that day. "Then let's begin." That night, under the stars, hope returned, not from inside Stonevale's walls, but from the people outside them. They were tired, poor, and forgotten, but they were human. And they had not given up, because even without power or money or walls, they still had each other. And sometimes that was enough to start again. The sun rose slowly over the dusty valley. Outside the walls of Stonevale, the small group of outsiders gathered where the land was dry and cracked. Rain stood among them, watching as men, women, and children unpacked their few belongings. Mara helped Lena carry a heavy water container. Their small bag was all they had left after the long walk. Rain cleared his throat. "We have to start somewhere. This land can be a home again. We can fix it bit by bit." People looked at each other. Many were tired and scared. Some had lost hope long ago. But Lena smiled brightly. Her hope was contagious. "We can plant seeds here," she said. "We can build shelters. We can help each other." Rain found some broken machines near the old solar tower. He began working on them with his small tools. The machines were old and rusty, but with care they could be fixed. A few men joined him, bringing pieces and parts. They worked together, hammering and cleaning. Mara gathered the women and taught them how to make simple clothes from old fabrics. She showed them how to sew and mend. Lena played with the other children, showing them how to draw shapes and letters in the dirt. Her laughter filled the empty space. Slowly, the outsiders began to feel like a family. Days passed. The group built small wooden shelters from scrap wood and metal. They dug shallow wells, hoping to find water. They planted seeds that some travelers had given them long ago, seeds for corn, beans, and small fruits. Rain taught the adults how to repair the solar panels to bring light at night. Mara made a small kitchen where everyone shared their food. Though the town inside Stonevale was cold and closed, outside the walls, life was growing. One morning, a group of traders came near the camp. They wore worn clothes but carried heavy bags filled with food and tools. "We heard about a new place here," one trader said. "A place where people help each other." Rain stepped forward. "Yes, we are building a new home." The trader smiled and nodded. "We can trade, you need tools, and we need food." Mara added, "We can share, but only if it is fair." A new hope rose with this chance. The outsiders were no longer alone. Even Lena could see the change. One afternoon, she helped plant a small garden near a shelter. "We're making a home," she said to Rain. He smiled. "Yes, Lena, and this home is stronger than any wall." At night, as the stars lit the sky, Rain stood outside the camp and looked back at Stonevale's walls far away. Inside were still cold eyes and locked gates. But here, people smiled, laughed, and worked together. Lena came to his side and held his hand. "You came to us with nothing," she said softly. "But now we have everything." Rain squeezed her hand. "You showed me what hope means.